The first Chassidic story, is a story about the Maggid of Koznitz. And his name was Rabbi Yisrael. Reb Yisrael was the first name of the Maggid of Koznitz. And in his town, there was a butcher that when he was younger, many people gossiped about him for, he obviously wasn't such a great guy. And because of that, people used to say things, he didn't do everything so right. And anyway, he became a butcher. And unfortunately, he passed away at a young age. And he had a wife and kids, and he passed away. And there was a shochet in town. The shochet is a slaughterer, and he's the one who makes sure the meat is always kosher. And the way it used to work was that the butcher would buy the animal, and the slaughterer would get paid a fee to slaughter the animal. And I guess whether it was kosher or not kosher, the slaughterer was able to get paid. The person who lost out is if the animal ended up not being kosher, the butcher ended up losing the money. The slaughterer, almost like a doctor. I think doctors get paid even if even if the person dies, God forbid. Not sure, but I think that's the way it works.
They do get paid.
They do, right? So
yes,
there's a joke that the doctor comes to the family and says, "Oh, the surgery was successful. Unfortunately, your relative passed away, but the surgery was successful." Anyway, not such a nice joke. But in any event, the slaughterer would get paid, but the butcher doesn't get paid. The butcher loses money if the animal is not considered kosher. There are numerous things.
Rabbi Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, because people are on, there's a lot of background noise. So when I'm watching it on the computer, it's showing your face for a few seconds and this big green telephone for a few seconds. Back.
Yeah, I'm going to mute everyone. Okay, let me mute everyone. Okay, so the story is that the butcher passed away, and he appeared in a dream to the shochet, crying to him and angry at him, and the shochet tried to push off these dreams, and but finally he just couldn't handle feeling like this man is screaming at him in a dream. He felt maybe there's some maybe there's something he can do to get to rid his guilt feelings. The poor man died, so he went to the Maggid of Koznitz, the Rabbi Yisrael, and told him about these dreams that he's having. So the Maggid said that the way it works is that if someone claims that you did something wrong to them, they have to come to you for a din Torah, for a court case. So the prosecutor has to go to the defendant to go to his town. I don't know if that's the way it works in America. I think it might be that if you're claiming against someone, you got to go to their state to have the court case. So the Maggid told the shochet, the slaughterer, he said, listen, tell him the next time he comes to you in a dream, tell him that let him appear to Reb Yisrael, the Maggid of Koznitz, with you for a court case. He'll have to come down, let him come down to earth, and or at least in a spirit form, or and we can have a court case if he has a claim against you. So sure enough, the next night he had another dream with him. He told him, listen, you have a claim against me. Let's go to the Maggid of Koznitz. You're obligated to come to me. So let's to my town. Let's do it here, and the Maggid of Koznitz will be the judge. So sure enough, they arranged the time, and this slaughterer came to the Maggid of Koznitz's house, and or his office, and the Maggid sent his shamish, his helper. He sent him to the cemetery and to announce to the grave of the butcher that passed away that we're going to have the court case now. So the slaughterer standing there in the Maggid's office, and sure enough, he hears on the other side of the some type of a machitza, like a partition, and he heard on the other side, he hears a voice, maybe like a heavenly voice, and he understands that's the soul, that's the soul of the butcher that had passed away. So sure enough, the Maggid asks the butcher, what, why are you coming? What is your claim against this slaughterer? So he says, well, this is the story. I've been in heaven, and they made a judgment against me that they won't allow me to enter the Garden of Eden because basically when I passed away because I had numerous debts. And why did I have all these numerous debts? Well, one after one, the animals that I had bought to get slaughtered, they were constantly, or very often, they were found to be non-kosher, meaning something was wrong with the lung, something was wrong with the way, somehow the way it's slaughtered, it wasn't done. It ended up being considered a non-kosher slaughtering, and if it didn't work out perfectly, then it gets it's not, we're not able to sell it, and therefore I ended up with all these debts. Now, when I came to heaven, I found out that the source of all my problems was this slaughterer. He intentionally caused the animals to be considered non-kosher, because there's numerous things. If he moves his arm wrong, or puts pressure on it when he's slaughtering, there are numerous things that could be done to cause the animal to be non-kosher. And for whatever reason, this slaughterer, this shaychet that's standing right here, he is the one who caused all of these debts. And I had so much debts that I got sick and I passed away from all the stress. And now my wife and children, they have no money. And that's why I'm here claiming against the shaychet, against the slaughterer, because he did this terrible thing to me and my family. He caused me to die. And then the Maggid of Koznitz turned to the slaughterer and said, what do you have to say? And the slaughterer, he said, well, the truth of the matter is, he's right. And he broke down, cried, and he felt very bad what he did. Look at what he caused. And the Maggid, Rabbi Yisrael, he said, listen, you need to, number one, pay back all the debts that were caused because of you. So you got to pay everyone back. Anyone that this family owes money to, the family of the of the butcher that passed away, you got to pay them all back. You also need to help out financially the widow and the orphans. So you got to give them a weekly check to help support the family because of what you caused. And do you accept this agreement? Do both of you accept the agreement? And sure enough, both the butcher and the slaughterer accepted the agreement, and they seem to be satisfied. Mission accomplished. Before the butcher had a chance to go back to leave, the Maggid of Koznetz, he says, "But Mr. Butcher, let me ask you a question. It just seems so surprising to me." He says, they let you right into the Garden of Eden, and only because of this, some financial issues? Like, what about all the, all of your activities when you were younger? There were, there must have been, numerous issues and challenging situations that, maybe just, wondering what's the story? How did the things work out for you when you went through this judgment in heaven? So the butcher says, you're right. It wasn't so simple. Initially, I was being judged, and I had a lot of sins of my youth. And the only thing is that when I was younger, before I became a butcher, I was a wagon driver. I used to take people, very nice, decent people, honorable people, righteous people, and I used to drive them, take them in my wagon. And one time, there was a group of bandits that stopped us, and they were going to steal from they were going to hold us all up, and they wanted to take all the wealth of everyone that was sitting in the back of my carriage. They were going to steal it from them, and maybe even kill them. And I was not a pushover. I was well built, and I got up and punched these people and beat them up until they ran away. And sure enough, we were all safe, and I was able to bring my customers to their destination safely. Now, when I was in heaven, or being judged, and I had all these sins that were being accounted for, so all of a sudden, a bunch of all of these righteous people that I saved their lives, they all came to testify. And they said, listen, a person who saves a life is like saving the whole world. And this man saved our life when he was driving us, and the bandits tried to hold us up. He saved our life. And so ultimately, they helped out, and they spoke on my behalf. And the case was decided that I deserve to go to heaven. I don't have to go to hell. And because these good deeds that I did, I risked my life to save them, to help them, basically matched out for all those sins that I did when I was younger. The only thing is that, they didn't let me into the Garden of Eden because I had all these debts. And I didn't make good on these debts that when I passed away. And they said, how can we allow you into the Garden of Eden? And so now now that I knew that it was, I saw in heaven, I saw everything so clearly. You see exactly what, all these secrets that people don't know here on earth. I saw that it was clearly this slaughterer that caused me the problems. And now he's going to pay all those debts and he's going to help out my wife and children. Now I'm sure they're going to let me go into the Garden of Eden and I will be able to enjoy the merits of all the good deeds that I did. And that's the end of the story. And so the question is, what do we see from this story? Anyone want to share any of their thoughts? Yes, Naomi.
I think the story is a straightforward story of the driver of the vehicle being stopped by bandits, and he came to the defense of his wards, and he won, but he lost, but he won again. I think justice was served. I don't know what else to say. It's a straightforward story to me.
Okay. Do we see anything about something inspirational about this story? I mean, it's nice that he risked his life to save them. Nothing would have happened to him if they, well, maybe, right? Maybe he was saving his own life. You're saying because,
he was okay.
Good point, Thomas. Naomi.
He risked his life to save those other people, but he was also risking his life to save himself. So maybe it was not totally altruistic. It was self-serving, maybe.
Okay. Good point. Naomi,
if I may.
No, 1 second, Loretta. Naomi, you had your hand up before. Naomi, but you're on mute, so you got to unmute yourself.
He also saved himself, saved his soul himself. Admitting the wrong.
1 second, Reb Tuvia, but Naomi wants to say something. Can you press unmute?
Yes, I did.
No.
There we go. Thank you. I know we have two Naomis in the class, correct?
Yes, you do. Correct.
Thank you. You could call me Nechama. Anyway, we don't always recognize ourselves, I believe, as doing a good deed because we don't see the end product, of course, but we don't do it because of the end product. We do it because of our good nature and our values.
So you're saying, even though you're sort of answering Gloria's point that even though he did it to save himself, he also really did it to save them. Is that sort of your point?
What was your end? That he did it for what?
He did it really to save his passengers, not really to save his own life.
Right. Exactly. Right. It was his goodness to save the people that were that were his customers. Correct. Right.
Okay. Good point.
Any good deed we do, it isn't because we know the outcome, but we have that goodness in us and we value that. So I think that's basically what I got from the story.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great point. Anyone else?
Yes.
I think 1 second. I think Reb Tuvia, you wanted to say something. So Reb Tuvia, press your *6 and you can speak now. Yeah, you're on.
I believe that the story is that he is right, so he corrected himself. In other words, he did all the wrong things in life, and finally, the Hestic guy did the right thing to correct his life and his soul, so he can be peaceful and be peaceful himself.
It's a little hard to hear you, Reb Tuvia. Do you want to try one more?
Rabbi, can I say something?
1 second. No, Reb Tuvia is trying to speak. Reb Tuvia, you want to just say that one more time? It was very unclear.
Okay, it's all right. I'll say one. I think he corrected his soul by saying the right thing. He says, "Hey, I might as well be the right thing, do the right thing. Let me clean my soul, and I go in with a clean slate."
Who are you talking about, the butcher or the slaughterer?
I'm talking about the butcher, that he could correct himself. Let me go start a clean slate. I was bad all when I was young, and I did this and I did that. So let me correct my soul, so I go in and go in heaven, God in obedience, so I'd be respect like anyone else, and I'm back to being myself, back to Ristica, back to the real thing, back to real life.
Are you saying that's why he saved those people's lives, because he wanted to fix up his soul? Is that what you mean?
I think when he saved those people because he did the right thing and saved his soul. You never know. You need, when you go to heaven, you need the good deeds. What's a good deed? You got to do all kind of, and this life is consistent of good deeds. You have to do good deeds all your life.
I think that's a great
counts against you, so you have to do everything you can.
I think that's a great point. What you're saying is not that he did it in order to cleanse his soul. What you're saying is not that he did it in order to cleanse his soul. But
I got a bad connection. I don't know what was in between him. But all right.
Okay, good point. It's not that he did it for that purpose, but you always need good deeds to fix things, and it turned out very good for him. Loretta, you wanted to say something. Loretta? *6. You need to press *6.
Can you hear me?
Now
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. What I take from this is a lesson for today's world, and I really mean this humbly. The righteous people spoke up in his defense. They weren't afraid of anything. And that's what we need more of in today's world, especially for the Jewish people.
Okay.
People have got to speak up, not be afraid of any circumstance. Because with that, we come away, not only do we save our souls, but we give inspiration for the young. That's all.
Okay, I think that's great.
And the driver knew he had to save them, because how does it look? If he didn't save his customers, he'd be out of business.
Person I have a lot.
Okay, and Gloria has been holding up her hand.
Maybe one of the points is that the slaughterer thought he was only damaging the butcher financially. He never stopped to think of the long-range repercussions that the butcher might not be able to get into heaven. And so this is a message to all of us not to do the wrong thing because we think, oh, big deal, it's not hurting the other person so much. But unbeknown to us, it's causing terrible, terrible damage.
I think that's a great point, Gloria. My question to you and to our whole group is what do you think the reason is? Why did the slaughterer do such an evil thing? What did he gain from this? Why would he have done that? He intentionally caused the animals to be not kosher? Like, what does he gain?
Money.
What do you mean? He's getting paid no matter what, if he did it right or he did it wrong. So he'll get his pay. Why would he do such a thing? What do you think? We need some helpers over here. Anyone want to share their thoughts?
He did such a thing because he was a goneth and he couldn't care less about anybody but himself.
So, it's hard to say that, like Gloria was mentioning, like he didn't realize how severe it was what he was doing. And that makes more sense that someone's like so evil. But what do you think could have been his thoughts, Ben? What do you?
There is somebody that's not muted and is disturbing the whole class for a long time now.
Okay, let me mute everyone.
It just stopped. It just stopped now.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. So my thought is that maybe the person, this slaughterer, maybe he was not as learned. Maybe he should have, studied all the laws better. And maybe so there were certain things that he did that he wasn't aware of. And when there were questions that were asked, and they ended up showing it to a Rav, and they found out if they showed it to a specialized rabbi, and it ended up that things that he did, maybe because he wasn't so in other words, not that he fully intentionally did all this, but he was irresponsible in some of the, in the way he slaughtered without really going over the laws well before he slaughtered each time. He should have reviewed maybe. Another thought is that maybe he was jealous. He thought the butcher was so rich, and he was so jealous that he sort of his jealousy overtook his mind, that he felt like, okay, what's the big deal if I'm not so careful, And it turned out that he misjudged him. Besides being foolish, who cares? Just because why should you be jealous if someone else is rich? That's great. Why should it bother you? But there are such feelings, and it's not uncommon to have such feelings, that people who are jealous, and everyone has a little jealousy, but sometimes you find people who are jealous, they somehow can do things that are a little crazy, like we find with Cain and Abel. I mean, look at what Cain, but I think Cain and Abel is a story that allows us to realize the severity of jealousy. Like, you don't even realize how crazy you could be. And here, sure enough, he misjudged him anyway. He wasn't even rich. He was poor, and he was in debt. And ultimately, these terrible things came out. But I mean, my thought about this story is much more about how this Chassidic Rebbe, the Maggid of Koznitz, was able to bring this soul and judge him, have him come back to the living, so to speak, or bring his, I mean, that to me is the greatest thing about this story. Is look at what, I mean, we're dealing with, that's quite I would think that's quite a accomplishment, to be able to have a judgment with some soul from heaven versus a human being. I mean, look at what we're dealing with, people that are not, this is like the Maggid of Koznitz was like a person who's not only in this world, but he's in the next world as well. He has authority everywhere. So to me, that's, I think, quite I think that makes this into a Hasidic story that, allows you to realize the power of greatness in holiness and spirituality. And we also see how everything in heaven is totally revealed, that, you see everything. This person did this wrong to you. You see, this is what he was thinking. This is exactly what that person was thinking. Like, you see it, everything is clear. Who was the one who, who did this, who said that, why did he say it? Everything is like, everything is going to be revealed. And that's a little, I guess, a wake-up call. It also teaches us how we got to finish up, make sure that we make good on all of our things in this world. We see sins of the youth are accounted for. I mean, there's numerous ideas that are, I think, here that we see. We see how angels will speak up for you. Angels, I mean, good deeds that you've done, they create angels that speak up for you. Okay, any other last thoughts before we go to the next story? Yes, Naomi. Unmute yourself.
So what's the scoop with the dream? We got to talk about that issue, that the dream, that we dream, and if we recall our dream,
I see that all the disturbance is coming from Naomi.
What is that sound?
The minute she opened up,
Naomi, do you have, I think you have 2 computers that are on.
Wow.
No? Somehow there's too much background noise. We can't hear you.
The problem is there's several people that are not muted
Okay.
while she's speaking.
Uh-huh. Okay. I think you might have
Yeah,
to.
Sorry,
on my
sir.
computer, I can see the person,
Yeah.
and then there's a little red microphone that has a line through it if it's muted, and I'm seeing a whole bunch of people that are not muted. So you have to mute everybody
No,
when she's
before they were
speaking.
all muted and it was still noisy.
when I prepare dinner.
Okay, try once more, Naomi. Only you unmute. Everyone else stay muted. Andrea, I'm going to come to you next. Don't worry.
So where did the dreams fit in, Rabbi and team, your group? Where did the dreams fit in? What the issue of the dreams? So we dream,
Uh-huh.
and where does that stand as far as commentary?
Uh-huh. That's a good question. Naomi's asking a very good question. Okay, I'm going to mute you. Naomi's asking a very good question that she's asking what is our dreams, do they say things, or is it really is a dream nothing? It's just guilt that a person has and something they've been thinking about too much. Or is there some truth to dreams? We see here that there is some truth to dreams. And what we see is sometimes some people are given revelations in their dreams. And but sometimes it is, things that we just think about during the day. And in this case, this was obviously a real thing. And sometimes people who study a lot of Torah during the day, they merit to have answers to their Torah in their dreams. And so that is, of course, for people that are holy and on a level of being able to. In fact, there's a whole discussion about the Jewish people before the giving of the Torah. They went to sleep. And one of the reasons was because they were able to connect with a certain level of spirituality in their sleep that you wouldn't be able to connect with when you're awake. And so there is some ability to connect on more spiritual levels when you're sleeping, when your mind doesn't interfere with your physical body doesn't interfere. Your soul is able to go up to heaven and connect with your body doesn't interfere. That's really the idea. And your soul can go, the soul leaves the body a little during sleep, and it's able to absorb more spiritual matters. So is there truth to dreams? It depends. If it's a bad dream that you're afraid of, that could be just a dream that, if you are afraid of it, it could give it power and strength. If you're not afraid of it, then it means nothing. So therefore, if you're afraid of it, there's even a leniency that you'd be allowed to fast on a Shabbos in order to repent and overcome any negative thing that the dream might be telling you. That's if you're afraid of it. If you're afraid, you could even fast on Shabbos for a dream, because a dream, prayer and fasting, that helps for a bad dream. On the other hand, if you're not afraid of it at all, it's not going to have anything anyway. And there's also an idea by a dream that it depends on how it's interpreted. That if you interpret it for the positive, it'll turn out positive. If you interpret it for a negative, it'll turn out negative. So always make sure to interpret a dream in a positive way, and then it'll turn out that way. So there's a lot of interesting things. In fact, in our morning session that we learn later on in the tractate, there's a whole section about dreams. And so it goes through numerous insights about dreams. We're not going to get to it for a number of months, but whoever stays with us, God willing, we will get there. So that's that. Andrea, I'm so sorry you were waiting so long.
That's all right. Basically, I wanted to say that no good deed goes unpunished. We can't hear you. I don't know why we can't hear you. Andrea, we cannot hear you. Maybe make your microphone. We cannot hear you. Did what he needed to do. Thank God it worked out for the positive for everybody, but he was outnumbered. If it was just him against a bunch of other bad folk. I don't know how to defend the slaughter man, because if he kept having that problem of the animals being unkosher every, almost every time. Let's give him some benefit that he was killing them. He had to think what's wrong with what he's doing. I mean, if he took his job serious, if there was no monetary reward, one way or the other. So I don't know.
You're again, we can't hear you now. Again, we can't hear you. Andrea, you're in and out. So you said an interesting point, but I don't know what you were developing. We cannot hear you.
Had an opportunity to amend himself with the intervention of the trial.
Uh-huh. So could you just summarize what you just said, because we missed half of it?
Oh, that's too bad. The summary, again, is no good deed goes unrewarded, whether it's in this life or in the afterlife. The butcher was, righted, even if it was not in this world, because of his goodness, which, again, I felt he didn't do thinking about it. He just reacted. And probably had Hashem on his side, that he came out in the right way, that everybody was saved. So if you do a good deed, you will be rewarded.
So you're asking sort of why is it that this butcher had to suffer so much after he did such a good deed of saving those people's lives, and yet he ended up dying early? That's sort of is that your question, like?
Well, I don't know. It wasn't a question. It was just a statement. I don't know why he had to suffer. The good deed rewarded him when he got into heaven after he passed.
Right. It helped him later, but it went no good deed goes unpunished means that he also suffered from it. So what did you mean by that? No good deed goes unpunished.
Unrewarded. No good deed goes unrewarded. He was rewarded.
Thinking of the common statement.
Not punished.
The common
Rabbi Smith.
Sarcastic line. Yes.
Rabbi Smith, I can see the problem. There's a thing in the computer that shows view, and it shows that while Andrea is speaking, we can't hear her because Gerald is not muted. He's the only one that's not muted at the same time. All the other ones are muted, but there's a lot of background noise because of that. If she should try it again, Andrea.
Oh, well, she said, I think we got her point, but if I'm going to I'll just say again what you said, and if it's not good enough, you can repeat it. But we did mute that person, so hopefully it's all, it shouldn't happen again. So basically, what you mentioned was that this butcher did benefit greatly from saving those people, and that teaches us how important it is to have good deeds, and it helps us. It'll help you. There's no question. Yeah, that's for sure a great, definitely a very important point, and it really, the whole world exists on chesed, kindness and good deeds. So that's very, very, very good. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next story. And the next story is a story of Reb Shmelka of Nicholsburg. Reb Shmelka of Nicholsburg. And Reb Shmelka lived in this city. He was the rabbi of the town, but he did have a lot of challenges from the community, because he was a Chassidic rabbi, and of course, not everyone was satisfied with that. There are a lot of people who, of course, if someone doesn't come from a Chassidic background, they might not have been comfortable, or they felt they're wrong. So whatever it was, he suffered greatly from the community, and in fact, to the extent that the community decided that they want to dismiss him. Now, the Shamish heard about this. The shamish, the helper, the person who, cleans up the shul and helps out the rabbi, and he heard that they're thinking of dismissing the rabbi. And he heard about it, and then guess what? They give him the task of telling the rabbi that he's going to now tell the rabbi that, he's fired. And the shamish, he said, how could you even think of firing this great rabbi? They said, what do you mean? It's no business of yours. You got to do your job. We hired you to be the shamish, and now you got to go and fire him. So the shamish said, do you know how holy this man is? And they said, what are you talking about? The shamish said, this man, the Reb Shmelka of Nicholsburg, this man is a tzaddik. And they said, how do you know? Who says? How do you know he's so righteous? And so he said, let me tell you. Every morning, my job as a shamish of the community, before we have, this is a time before they had alarm clocks, how do people wake up to go to daven in the morning? You know how they used to do it? They would send the shamish. The shamish, his job was to run around the whole town and wake everyone up. All the Jewish houses. He would stand in front of the Jewish houses and bang on the door and say, we need you to come to the minyan. And that's the way, that was the community custom. And this shamish, he's telling the other heads of the community, he says, listen, every day I wake everyone up in the morning, and there's not a day that I come to the rabbi's house and his light's not on and he's not sitting there. But not only he's sitting there, but he's sitting with another person. And when I once asked Reb Shmelka of Nicholsburg, who is that person that you're studying with? He looks, looks holy. So Reb Shmelka of Nicholsburg told me that this is Elijah the prophet. And one day when I came, Reb Shmelka had two people with him, and Reb Shmelka was holding two candles, and he was escorting them. And one of them was wearing a crown, a golden crown. And I asked Reb Shmelka, who was this extra person? And Reb Shmelka explained to me, he says, listen, I had I had to judge a major case, and the person involved, it involved Menashe, the famous King Menashe, who did a lot of was a king from the tribe of Judah, and from 2,500 years ago, he had to come and speak in this case. The case involved a member of a different community that he went around and went to every church and chopped off the crosses and smashed them. When the government heard of what he did, they sentenced him to be executed, and they did. They executed him, and his wife and children. They came to they came to their rabbi, and they're wondering if there's any funds for the widow and orphans, and the people in charge of the fund, they had a fund in that community for widows and orphans, and the person in charge says, we don't give any money to people who commit suicide. We only give it to people who die. And this man went around, did such a foolish thing to go around and incite the Christians, and did such a thing. He basically committed suicide. We don't have to pay. Our money should not go towards you know, we have limited funds, and we don't feel that this money should go to pay the widow and the orphan of a man of this man, especially because we have a rule. We don't give it to people who commit. We don't help out the people who commit suicide. So they want to know. So this rabbi wasn't sure what to do, so he forwarded the case to me, to Reb Shmelko, and it turned out that when I was looking into the case, it turned out that this man who had passed away was a reincarnation of King Menashe. And King Menashe was an interesting king, very, very wicked in the beginning. I believe 22 years. He was extremely wicked. He served idols, and he got everyone in the whole kingdom of Judah to worship idols. And then after 22 years of doing the worst sins, and not only doing the worst things, worshiping idols and making it so popular, he basically encouraged others to worship idols. And then for 33 years, he repented. And his repentance obviously was not good enough. And he ended up being reincarnated in this man from this other town. And that's why this man from this other town ended up having this desire to destroy all idol worship. And that's why he went and he smashed all the crosses and so on, things of idol worship in town, and ultimately gave his life up, because what he really was doing was atoning for the sins of Menashe. He was atoning for the sins of his of where he, his original soul, and that's why Menashe had to come and tell us what why he was doing, why he did it. And so I needed that information, and that's why he appeared together with Elijah. And that is the story of why I think that he is a very righteous tzaddik, Reb Shmelko. And as far as I know, the story doesn't tell us if he stayed, but as far as I know, he ended up staying in town. I don't know my history of the exactly of Reb Shmelko, so I may be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, he stayed in town. Now, the real miracle of this, well, let me open it up for everyone to share their thoughts. What do you think about this story?
Well, Rabbi, I didn't get the part, the last part that you said that he atoned for the sins of somebody else.
Menashe, King Menashe, who had done this sin of so many sins of idol worship, and he was atoning for the idol worship of his incarnated original soul, which caused so much idol worship.
In a previous life.
Previous life.
Okay.
I wondered, why did it take so long for this soul to be reincarnated over 2,000 years later?
That's a good question.
One after the other?
So what do you think, Will? What do you think?
In no previous reincarnation did the soul have the courage to do what he was supposed to do?
Well, that's one thought. I would think that I would think that there were numerous atonements needed, and he appeared numerous times and did some atonements in previous, but it maybe wasn't completed.
Okay.
I mean, going through, doing what he did for 22 years and being such a leader, it would seem like it takes that this would take quite a long time to atone for such sins. If you read the book of Kings, I mean, what Menashe did was considered, not just evil, but he really epitomized idol worship, and a king that could did evil in the eyes of Hashem. Menashe is high up there in being one of those such an evil king. But
well, I didn't know about that history either.
yeah. Okay, so but that's a good point, Will, and good question. It's something we don't understand exactly all the details of incarnations, but that would seem like that. Maybe that would be the answer. It's definitely a good question. Okay, any other thoughts on this story? Yes, Andrea.
Thank you. Do all these incarnations of King, do they know that they are that, or why they're doing the things that they're doing? Like, cutting all the crosses off? Do they know why they're doing it?
So that's
do they realize that they're a reincarnation of whomever, and this is part of it?
Probably not. Probably not. They probably have, this feeling of, that they want to do what's right, but I don't believe that they would know, unless they're very righteous themselves, unless we see them as being, high, righteous people. Righteous people might know who their original soul in different life, but I don't think most people have that knowledge. That's my answer. Can you hear me, Andrea? Andrea, hello? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. And yes, I can hear you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other thought? Any other question? Did you have something else, Andrea? No. Miranda.
Yeah, I have a question about the widow. If he made restitution for his life as King Menashe, etc., then why was she? Denied assistance? Because it seems like he had a purpose in doing this or something. Is there any statement about that?
Well, it doesn't tell us what the final verdict that Reb Shmelka gave. We don't know what his final verdict was, but he did take this into account, when it came to his verdict. But the story is only telling us why he met with Menashe, why Menashe came to explain what was going on, and that's really the story. If it probably, I would think that probably made him choose to help out this woman and her children. I also wonder a little about not helping out the widow and orphans of of someone who commits suicide. I mean, to me, that sounds also a little strange. A person did something wrong, but that doesn't mean the widow and orphan have to die. So I don't know about the whole arrangement that this community had. Maybe they would give less money to someone who has committed suicide, or maybe they would, in order to discourage suicide, they didn't want it to. They wanted someone to maybe they had some limit when it comes to suicide. But I can't imagine that they would just let the woman and orphan anyway of someone, even if someone who really does commit suicide pass, they just let them die. So
because isn't it a Jewish law that you help the widow and orphan?
Of course.
It's a major Jewish law. It's like,
anyone poor, and especially a widow and orphan, you have to care about their, you have to have extra love and, for them. So, so definitely is a little questionable exactly what their agreement, what that charity fund's policy exactly was. But in any event, to answer your question, it doesn't tell us really what his final verdict was. Okay, any other thoughts on this?
Rabbi, yes.
Yeah.
Now, they proclaim that he committed suicide. He destroyed the things in the church. Wasn't it up to the church with their edicts of whoever just touches or destroys or harms, we will kill them?
So
why was they saying he was committing suicide? Because they were afraid that the Catholic Church might harm them?
Well, no, the point is that if someone holds up a gun to the police and the police shoot them, would you call that committing suicide? Because a lot of people do that. They want to commit suicide, but they don't want to shoot themselves.
True.
So they hold up a
True.
gun to the police, and then the police has to shoot. The police have to shoot him, and so.
Well, if they have to protect their lives, yes. But
This
maybe he was mentally deranged.
Yeah, but
Or maybe, I'm going to throw something as a question. Maybe there was a Dybbuk in him.
right. So these are things that that we're being judged. We're not judging we're not giving the verdict of of deciding if we should give the widow or orphans money. We're just looking at the story of how it happened. But these are
But
things
then the community,
the community would have to deal with that. That would be something the rabbi.
the community judged him as committing suicide.
Well, that's the way, they're in charge of the fund, and they wanted to have that claim. And then the other side would claim, it wasn't considered suicide, and then the rabbi has to judge it. But that's okay. They can look at it that way. That's their way of, they see
And then they let the Catholic Church off with committing murder against a Jew?
Well, it seems like the Catholic Church was the government in that town. So there wasn't much, there wasn't much that they could do for the, against the Catholic Church. And, that wasn't an option here. You know what I mean? That was a given. The question is if the charity had to give, funds, and that's not
Well, they were wrong.
We're talking
I
about
agree with Adrian. They should have given the widow and the children money.
Right. Okay. Well,
I mean, otherwise they would be committing murder when the widow and the children died of starvation.
Right. So we're not, discussing that. They probably did, but we're not really getting into that. We're looking more at the story.
We don't know.
We're looking at the story. The Shamish tells the community what a tzaddik their teacher
Well,
is.
he did right. He did right.
And he did a wonderful thing. But the question is, what do we see from this story? What do we really learn from it? So we discussed a little, the details, how the story made sense. But what do we really get from this story? So one of the things that we see from the story is that this Shamish, he was so humble that he didn't go around telling people that he got to see Elijah. I mean, that would be such a matter of pride. I mean, can you imagine having the merit to see Elijah? And, he just felt like a regular Shamish, never told a soul. And that, is a tremendous thing. Another great thing we see is how Reb Shmelka had the ability to have a soul of King Menashe with his crown come down to, to discuss a matter with him. I mean, that also, similar to the previous story, it's quite a big thing. I mean, as a rabbi, I've never had anyone come from the next world to share with me information, like this. Now, that's
not yet, Rabbi.
Now, another thing is that, why did the rabbi, Reb Shmelka, feel that he was, that he shared with this Shamish, he shared with him the information that he got, that he sees, that he studies with Elijah? Does that sound like he was a little proud of, who he studies with? Or maybe he should have been keeping that a secret, that Elijah comes to him on a daily basis. I mean, does that sound, that's a great part of the story as well, that Elijah meets
the story.
Elijah meets with this Reb Shmelka on a daily basis. But, that's like a story of the Talmud. There were rabbis in the Talmud that would see Elijah all the time. But, but the question is, why did he share this confidential information with this Shamish? Miranda.
Yeah, I was thinking that perhaps the Shamish was very humble
And the Rev knew that he wouldn't share it, and so he felt it was okay to
Right.
share the information with the shamus because it wouldn't go anywhere. But if he shared it with someone else, it would be big news all over the place, kind of a thing. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds like a very, very good answer. I would add, in addition to what you're saying, does anyone else want to say something? Or
I thought that it was because the rabbi and the shamash had a very close relationship. It wasn't just a servant, it was someone that the rabbi trusted deeply.
Okay. 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 And Naomi, we can't hear you. Okay, Naomi, we cannot hear you. You have to.
I believe that the shamus was trusted.
Right. Okay.
And ditto to what was just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I would just add that the fact that this shamash was able to see Elijah and ask Reb Shmelka about, who is that man? The fact that he saw him, because a regular person who would come to their door would not actually see Elijah. They would see nothing there. The fact that he saw him told Reb Shmelka, this guy deserves to know. He's allowed to know because he is able, the fact that he's able to see it means that for him, it's okay. And that shows you the greatness of this simple shamash, that he was merited to really see Elijah and how the humility of this shamash. So I think we see a lot of great things from this story. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.